This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is Mark Souza. We have some news to talk about in the world of sports. Well, there is some funny things about Wingo going off yesterday on their radio show or podcast, or what. I don't even know what the show is called. Do you?
Which show are you talking about?
Where Wingo went off and told everyone to shut up about the Super Bowl being boring.
It's the Mike in the Morning show. I don't know what they call it now, but
yeah,
it's that show.
It was just too funny. We're going to talk about that also. And we're also going to talk about the Pelicans and what they're asking for Anthony Davis and if it's too much, as well as some basketball games that happened the other day, as well as Harden's streak and what Kobe thinks about it, and also some NFL news that has happened, as well as we didn't talk about the NFL Honor Awards yesterday because it was all about the Super Bowl. So we're going to talk about who won the awards, which you already know, but we'll say our piece about it. And that's about it for the day. So we'll talk anything else we'll just discuss as we go on. But first things first, the Pelicans are demanding 4 first-round draft picks for Anthony Davis, plus I'm assuming the players in that trade, if I'm not mistaken. I'm assuming it's more than just 4 first-round picks. But what are your thoughts on it, Mark?
Well, we don't really know what they're demanding or what the offer is.
That's just the reports.
Yeah, I've seen everything from Lonzo, Kuzma, Ingram, Stevenson.
Rondo's in there too, I think.
Rondo, Beasley, and 2 first-round picks for Davis and Solomon
I think
Hill.
they said I think the report is they want those players plus 2 more first-round picks, which is
that's not going to happen.
That you said you should break the bank for him, or in quote unquote break the bank, as in like you should go all out for him. Do you think would you? Or if you're Magic Johnson, would you accept that trade?
I don't think that is real. Like, I don't think, from my perspective, the Pelicans are going to trade Anthony Davis to the Lakers, and now they're just, I don't know,
milking it.
No, they're just reporting things now to try and get another team to jump in that's going to offer them something so over the top to drive up the price. Mm-hmm. But I think it's pretty set in stone that Anthony Davis will be on the Lakers before Thursday's deadline.
Okay.
And I don't think it's going to be a bigger offer than what we've already seen. Mm-hmm. So they're not getting 4 first-round picks plus 3 young players plus 2 other veteran players. Like, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and
you still
also
have to put 12 people on the court. Like, I mean,
this is true, and also there is only 2 days left before the trade deadline. They are running out of time, so this is going to be. I think this could be like a last-minute trade deadline type thing.
Yeah, the Pelicans hold all the chips. They don't have to trade them, so they'll drag this out. They'll go to the 23rd hour, and then at the end of the day, I think they'll trade him to the Lakers. They'll get a really good offer that they like. They'll do it. But you got to think, like, why wouldn't you report this kind of stuff out in the media if you're the Pelicans? You absolutely have to. You have to start the rumor train. You have to drive up some buzz, and what better way to do it than drop some, I don't know, stuff in the media, say, oh, we're looking for 4 first-round picks, because then maybe the Lakers get a little trigger-happy. Maybe Magic Johnson picks up the phone and says, you know what, here's an extra first-round pick or something like that. So they don't have to trade him. They hold all the chips, so they're going to milk this thing out and hope maybe another team gets involved, comes in with an overwhelming offer. Now, we heard Anthony Davis said that there are 4 teams that he would consider re-signing long-term with. I also don't think that's true. Like, I don't look at that report and say, oh, yeah, he definitely said that, you know?
I think, and again, he really doesn't have a choice in the matter. He has a choice after his contract is up, but before that, he has legitimately no, like, leeway. He cannot.
Well, the report was where he would sign long-term. So
yeah.
It was kind of saying, like, if you're these teams,
go for me, but if you're other teams, I'm just going to be there until my contract's up. But, I mean, that's still another year after this year, correct?
Right.
I mean,
he has one more year after this season on his contract.
I can see some teams saying, I want to win now, that go for him, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's definitely teams that will think, well, I can convince him. Remember when Paul George got traded to the Thunder? Everybody's like, there's no way he's resigning in Oklahoma. Well, he did.
Yeah, this is true.
If you're the Knicks, you don't really have anything to offer them right now. You don't really have anything to offer the Pelicans, so it's going to be hard to even conjure up a trade. Milwaukee, I really don't know what they could give back. Obviously, they'd pair him with Giannis, so maybe Chris Middleton.
God,
but
can you imagine, though? Let's just let that one sink in. Anthony Davis and Giannis on the same team at the same time.
Yeah, Milwaukee has very little to return. Like, there's probably 20 teams that could offer better trade than Milwaukee can, so I don't think that's realistic.
But
Boston can't do anything until the summer.
I'm just saying, like, in a perfect world, my gosh, they would be unstoppable together.
Mm-hmm.
They have like guards that can give them the ball, and that's all you need.
One team that I find interesting that I might try to make a play for him is the Clippers, because they do have a couple young players. They could possibly get in the mix. I don't know. I mean, they got, their 2 first-round picks this last year. They got Harrell. They could possibly do something. I don't think they're going to get involved, but it would be interesting to see the Clippers actually make a move for him in Los Angeles and not the Lakers.
I feel like they would go. It's not they would go backwards in theory, but it's like they would have to give up so much of their team for him that he would be in the same position he is in the Pelicans, in my opinion, because he would not have that kind of supporting cast as he would if he was there on free agency.
Yeah, well, if he goes to the Lakers, it's going to be him and LeBron and probably 6 G League guys. But
LeBron is different from just him by himself in LA. It's
going to be very interesting if they make that trade at the Lakers. I will say, because I have no idea how the Lakers are going to find 5 people like Carmelo. Will he sign, and then who else? Like they're going to be a very weak team other than their 2 stars.
Well, now, look at LeBron in the past though, by himself.
Obviously, you have those 2 players. You could be good, but at some point they got to come off the court.
Yeah, but they'll probably that is true. But I mean, we've seen them have average minutes go to like almost the entire game without resting. I've seen that happen with both of them in certain situations.
They won't be able to do that sustainably. I mean,
I think they'll do that when it comes to the playoffs, but before then they
have to make the playoffs first.
That was my point going into, like, they need guys that can help them get into the playoffs. Once if they get to the playoffs, then they could play the full game.
Yeah, I actually don't even think they'd make the playoffs with Anthony Davis and LeBron and no one else. Like, literally, they'd have to find some players that are below.
Like, honestly, I think they would have to trade, like, some other draft picks or some other, like, G League players to get other players from other teams. Like, this is like a lose-win situation. You get Anthony Davis, but like you said, they'll have nobody else.
Yeah.
Maybe Hart. If Hart doesn't seem like he's in that trade, I guess Hart can be a starter now.
Hart, Caldwell Pope. I mean, they'll have to.
Was Zubac in that trade discussion? Because I think he was, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen his name. We don't know. We don't know who's actually in, who's actually out.
True.
But what we do know is that LeVar Ball doesn't want Lonzo Ball to play with the Pelicans.
Well, it doesn't matter what he thinks. That's all.
LeVar is pushing for Lonzo to end up on the Suns if he is indeed traded for Anthony Davis. So,
well, that's the only time we're going to talk about him, because I have no comment about him or what he wants for his son, because it doesn't matter what he wants. It's all about others. It's all about how the teams and the general managers work this out. So, yeah, nothing about him. There's no reason for him to even to be discussing this, because he has no say.
Yeah, well, I mean, it matters, though, because if you're the Pelicans, do you really want all that drama? Do you really want all that noise? when you trade for a player.
To be quite honest, I think Lonzo is one of those guys who's actually like down to play with any team. Like it doesn't matter to him personally, but it's always up to his father. So you just have to deal with that headache. But I think Lonzo himself would still play at a high level if he's still with the Pelicans. That's just my opinion.
But if you're the Pelicans, do you want that negativity, that negative press all the time? Does it matter? Like that's kind of something they need to work out, right? Like, do you flip Lonzo to another team? At least he's not your problem if you do that. Or do you say, you know what, we believe in this kid. We actually think he could be really good. And we're going to stick with it and hope that he changes his tune or changes his mind. It's interesting to think about.
But I guess you could get like, but if you're the Suns and you're like, oh, he wants to play with the Suns, like you're not giving up. Like the only thing the Pelicans would be saying is like, give us Devin Booker, and there's no way giving rid of Devin Booker.
Yeah, I mean, they have other interesting pieces.
Yeah,
they could trade.
But of course they're going to ask for Booker. That's like going to be their first.
The Suns
offer.
definitely need a point guard, so it would make a lot of sense. But
that's their scoring
the Suns
guy,
trading
though.
like Josh Jackson and maybe something else for Alonzo Ball is interesting. Mm-hmm. Josh Jackson still a touted prospect. He's young. He hasn't really figured it out yet, but he doesn't really have a role on the Suns, I don't think, moving forward. And he was a top 5 pick. You might flip him for that, and then the Pelicans can have another young piece without a headache. Yeah, I don't know. There's possibilities because the Suns do have some young assets. Obviously, they're not going to get rid of Booker. They're not going to get rid of Ayton. But I don't know if anybody else isn't on the table. Like I think they'd definitely be looking to make a move because the Suns have no point guard. Like I can't believe there's an NBA team in 2019 that has such little at that position. It's actually embarrassing. They don't have a point. Like they don't have a legit, even backup caliber NBA point guard.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's kind of the position they're in right now, though. It makes sense in the long run, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, how are they doing this good without? Like, they're still not good at all, like, in theory.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just how it works.
Yeah. Obviously, LeVar can say whatever he wants, and he's not pulling any triggers at the end of the day, but it is something. Like, it is something. Him being adamant about Lonzo is an issue. And it is interesting that he's been able to be quiet for almost this entire season. I wonder if the Lakers, I don't know, had a meeting with him or paid him off. Like, there's something up with him, right? Like, he has been oddly quiet, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he hasn't
said anything until now. Because it's, obvious that his son's probably going to be traded in the next 48 hours.
True. But
I haven't heard from him all year. Like since he pulled his kid out of Europe and put him in that Spire Academy in Ohio. Like I haven't heard.
Well, good. I don't want to hear him personally.
No, I'm just saying it's
been
interesting.
I
it's
think
different.
Maybe it's me being mature about it, but I don't know.
I wouldn't go that far. That's giving him too much credit.
I was just trying to give him the benefit of the doubt of them not hearing it, but overall, I think it's just one of the long lines of just he had nothing to say because there was nothing really to go on. There's nothing really to comment about.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's something to comment about.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Kobe Bryant was interviewed on The Jump, and he was asked about James Harden, and he said, well, I think he has to do what he has to do in order for his team to win, and there's certain levels to it. So there's a style of play in which he's using, which I'm not a fan of in terms of winning championships. I don't think that style's ever going to win championships. But he said, at the same time, you got to keep your team's head above water to win games. That was Kobe talking to ESPN's Rachel Nichols and Tracy McGrady. So what do you make of those comments?
I have been considering that, and I agree with him because of the fact that if this continues, because once they get to the playoffs, it's going to be all about stop Harden. And the teams in the playoffs can stop him. They are in the playoffs for a reason. They can stop that guy, in the West especially. And once that happens, what are the Rockets going to do? They don't have their best scorer, their guy who brings up probably 50% of their points, arguably. And, they're dead in the water.
Yeah.
That's what Kobe is saying.
And Harden agreed with Kobe. He said he's probably right. We probably can't win like this.
Yeah, because you need to trust your supporting cast. I know it's not the most talented supporting cast, don't get me wrong, but it's still like you got to trust them, right?
Yeah. But Harden said, I have to be ball dominant just because we've had injuries. We've had injuries throughout the course of the year. Chris Paul, Eric Gordon, multiple guys that handle the ball have been injured, which is true. I mean, there's nothing.
But are you frustrated if you're one of his teammates that he has basically saying he has almost no faith? Doesn't it feel
they're
like
winning.
I mean, yeah, but it just feels like he's saying he has no faith in his other teammates, doesn't it?
I mean, I don't know, man, but like, should he have faith? Like, should he pass the ball? Like, I don't think so.
Give him a chance at least, right? I mean,
give him a chance to do what? Like,
score.
But if they're winning games,
I know. But again, if he admits,
you can't like, what is it? Don't change what's not broken.
But he said he admitted they can't win like this forever.
He said win a championship. Yeah, he said win it. Yeah, he's saying.
So you got to change.
He is
it a
saying
little bit.
we can't do this to win a championship, but I'm doing what I have to do right now because injuries have taken place. Which he's not wrong about that. Like Paul and Gordon have been out for some time. Those guys are scorers and they're ball handlers. So,
but if they're gone in the playoffs, what are they going to do? It sounds like they're going to be dead in the water, like I said.
I mean, they're going to be dead in the water even if they pass the ball around, though, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, regardless. So you might as well just go down with the best scorer in the NBA shooting. I don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying, but if those guys aren't healthy in the playoffs, they're not going to win, right?
Mm-hmm. It just feels like they might need to change up their game just to do a little trial and error run almost to see what they can do for the playoffs. If they're already destined to make them.
Well, 27 games now in a row where he has over 30 points. He is only the second player ever to go this far. The only other person is Wilt Chamberlain, which there might need to be an asterisk on that just because Wilt was very
so
much
better
so ahead of his time.
And so much better than everybody else that it was just unfair.
Yeah. So not taking.
I mean, the
anything away
guy
from
scored
Wilt.
100 points in a game for crying out loud, and there was no 3-point range. So do the math there.
Yeah, nothing to take away from Wilt, but yeah.
You know, if there was no 3-pointers and all the shots he made were twos, including free throws were still one, he would only be averaging 28 points a game. Harden,
which would be more than everybody else still, right?
Yeah, but still, like he's averaging 36 now. That's almost like 10 points less. That's just how insane how much he is from threes, is what I'm saying.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but it's still insane how he's just continue. Like he's honestly like, isn't he on like a 40-point streak in theory because he's had like back-to-back games? Like, it's insane how many games he's had that.
Yeah, I think he's over 40 points.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, he's had just as many like 40-point games as he has like 30-point games. You know, it's not just like they're past 30. It's past 30. It's going into the 40s like some games. Like it's insane.
Yep. They win last night, 118-110 over the Suns. So, Harden 44 points on 26 shots. Again, not bad. 44 off of 26. They shot 49% as a team, 31% from three. But yeah, they went on the road against Phoenix, who Phoenix are now 11-44.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but that just sounds just like, it's just like give them a participation trophy or something, you know?
They're going for the Zion trophy.
Yeah, which could make them pretty good in the long run.
Phoenix Suns are 27.5 games behind first place.
Damn.
The New York Knicks are 29 games behind in the East.
Oh, yeah, they moved down to last place. They've lost 13 in a row. Like, Phoenix has lost 11, but the Knicks are still going. I think the Knicks are winning the Zion trophy at the moment, though, in theory. Because they have only 10 wins compared to their 11.
It's going to be an interesting lottery.
But again,
because of the rule changes.
True. But again, we are in this. We are in the era now, and where we're 14% for each of the bottom teams, right?
Bottom three.
Bottom three. So it doesn't matter if you're in the top bottom three or not, right?
Right.
So
as long as you're in the bottom three.
Yeah, it's a win-lose situation. The win is for the third place team. The lose is for the last place team, because there's almost no I guess there is still an incentive to tank it. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as flattering as it was before.
Yep.
There's no fight for last place. It's fight for the bottom three now.
Mm-hmm.
but that's just how it works, I guess.
Yep. So should we go to a break?
We can go to a break, sure. And while we're on a break, I want to talk to you real quick, and you can think about this during the break, about investing. Because when investing and planning for your retirement, it's always best to get advice from the experts. Best-selling author Harry Dent, America's #1 economist, says the dark window is open. There's an opportunity to rapidly boost your retirement savings for the greatest stock market crash in American history. This dark window won't be open for long. You can make up to 10 times the annual average stock market gain in just a few short months. Find out more by going to www.harrydentforecast.com. There's a very short time to take advantage of this dark window. So once again, if you want to take advantage, go to www.harrydentforecast.com to learn more.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So I just finished watching, once again, the Trey Wingo rant he did yesterday. It's so good. I loved it. I loved the fact that he was just insulting his own fan base, though. Just everyone watching was insulting because everyone's saying it's boring. It doesn't matter. Like, it's boring, sure, but you still watch it because the fact you're waiting for something to happen. You don't, like, saying everyone to shut up.
Yeah, you're invested in it.
Yeah, it's still, like, it could be boring, but you're like, oh, it's still the Super Bowl.
Trey Wingo's a nice guy. I think that was
he's snapped, man.
I think that was fake. I think that was very manufactured by him.
You think so? Because he was.
Yeah, that's not how he is at all. I listen to the guy daily, and that sounded forced. It didn't sound legitimate from my point of view. So, yeah, sounded very manufactured. Of course, he made the headlines, and we're talking about it, so it worked.
Yeah, it just seems so out of nowhere too. Like, I don't think anyone's been complaining about everyone complaining that it was boring. Like, he's the first guy I've seen. It's just one of those things, and where just you don't expect someone to snap like that and then continue to insult your fan base and continue to say you're all stupid, or not stupid, but the worst, quote, the worst, which is...
Yeah, I mean, what he was saying was silly in its own right. I mean, yeah, if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. Well, okay, well, if you've watched the NFL the whole season, you're not going to just turn it off until the game's over. I mean, you're invested in it.
Also an excellent point.
Yeah, so... And plus, the Raptors and Knicks played earlier in the day, so that's BS too.
Yeah.
That was played earlier. So.
And, yeah, there's just a lot of... And yeah, was there any basketball games on during the Super Bowl? I don't think so. Yeah, why would they?
They were all earlier.
Yeah, it's called, like, why would they purposely do that? Yeah, again.
Yeah, they want people to go to the game, not go to the game.
Yeah, and it's not just having a game just to finish up the season. It's like, come on now, it's the Super Bowl. No one's watching anything else but the Super Bowl. Regardless of how the game is played, people are watching for the commercials. People are watching for the halftime show. There's so many other aspects of the Super Bowl that people watch it for. And that is why it's such a spectacle.
Speaking of that, the viewership was the lowest since 2007 for this Super Bowl. And only 26% of people in New Orleans watched it, which is by far the lowest in recorded history.
It's almost like they thought they would be in it. And
also,
they were protesting.
The halftime show in New Orleans was definitely better than Atlanta's, by the way. That party they had in New Orleans was pretty cool.
Yeah. Still a little irritating though.
Super Bowl viewership, lowest since 2007. I think that is not
Wait a
surprising.
minute, 2007 wasn't that Super Bowl 42, or was that Super Bowl 41?
Was that the
Because
Steelers
2007
Cardinals?
season. No, 41 was Colts and Bears. 42 was Patriots and. I'm assuming that 2007 was because the Super Bowl 41 did happen in 2007, and Super Bowl 42 technically happened in 2008. So, yeah, it must have been Super Bowl 41
Colts
between
and
the Bears and Colts, which
That
makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone was interested, I guess, in seeing Peyton Manning win, but like Bears were, I guess it was Rex Grossman. So, yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it was to not the big. Well, Chicago's a pretty big market, but yeah, you don't have the following as maybe some other fan bases do. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's dictated by action. The game was boring. I mean, it was low scoring, so a lot of people turned it off. That goes into the ratings. So they started watching it, and then no, I'm bored.
As for us, I don't think we can turn it off because. The fact
I will definitely say that I was at a Super Bowl party, one that I'm at every single year, and I would say about a third of the people left at halftime. No joke. And that's never happened before.
I've never heard of people actually leaving a party.
And it was interesting because I kept watching on Twitter yesterday. It was like all the people uploading the videos of people sleeping during the Super Bowl or leaving during the Super Bowl, like doing everything else but watch it because it was
Can you
so boring.
blame them, though?
No, absolutely not.
I feel bad for, like, Rams and Patriots. I feel bad for the Rams more than the Patriots because it's like, who knows if they're going to end up back there. That's for the Patriots. This is just a average Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I think about it more.
Well, if you're a Rams fan, you're probably wanting no one to watch it because it was embarrassing.
It was pretty embarrassing.
Performance. You scored 3 points, and your team averages 34 points a game. You scored 3 in the
Super Bowl. You better come up, and they didn't, and that may show. That might be a positive, or like, is that a negative for their future? Maybe it's a motivation for their future. Who knows? We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Super Bowl, though, defensive coordinator Brian Flores for the New England Patriots has been introduced as their new head coach. So the Dolphins have their man, Brian Flores, 37-year-old de facto defensive coordinator. He is the linebackers coach, but he did call the plays. So basically the defensive coordinator. He now stays within the division. He takes over in Miami. He leaves the Patriots. What do you think about this?
Well, we've talked about this, how the Dolphins have kind of admitted that, we're not winning for the next couple of years. So he's obviously signed up for a long-term plan, not a win-now plan. So he has time to get better as a head coach and be more comfortable as a head coach rather than the defensive coordinator. So maybe it's the best spot for is it? I believe this is his first time as being head coach, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so it's a perfect place to be a first-time head coach because you're not in the pressure of winning now.
Does a part of you believe that Miami only hired him because he helped the Dolphins achieve the Miami Miracle?
So you're saying he did such a bad job on the defensive side and helping them when they signed him?
It is interesting, isn't it?
He
was the defensive coach for maybe the worst play in defensive history for the Patriots. Now I know they won the Super Bowl. They had a great defense, but it is kind of funny that it was against the Dolphins, basically. But yeah, we'll see who he will hire. It sounds like Jim Caldwell, former Colts and Lions coach, might be joining him. There are other names that have been thrown out, some assistant coaches around the league that might be joining him as coordinators. But we will see as he starts filling out the staff who he is able to bring over. What do you think about this long term, though? Do you think Brian Flores could actually have success in Miami, or will he be another 2-3 year coach and then they'll flip him again?
Well, the question is based off the legacy of Belichick's underlings going to be a head coaches elsewhere. Has any of them been successful?
I do not believe so. At least not that successful.
Well, I mean,
we've seen Charlie Weiss, Romeo Crennel,
There's never been a Super Bowl coach.
We have Vrabel. Vrabel's been okay, I guess, but it's too early to tell.
But not like, I wouldn't even say they made it to the conference championships, have they? Maybe?
McDaniels made it to divisional or AFC championship. Which one?
Divisional, because they got destroyed by
no, they beat Pittsburgh and they
lost to New England.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe not.
So no. So I've always with the background of just Belichick's coaching staff not doing well, I've always been skeptical about this. And even with the Lions and Patricia, it's always been
at some point one of these guys has to be good, right?
Maybe. But it seems
just by pure numbers, like one of these 10, 12 people has to be decent.
Yeah, just by a 1 out of 100, one needs to do well, right? Yeah, but I see what you're saying, but again, the Dolphins have said they aren't reportedly have said they aren't winning now, so he has time to
Their
build.
owner Stephen Ross said we're going to look to really build this organization based on our needs, and if it takes year, 2, 3 years, we're going to be there.
Yeah, so he has time to be bad and then good. He has time to be experienced as a head coach. You know what I mean? So it's actually probably the best situation for a rookie head coach.
Yeah, and Flores did have comments about that, about the rebuilding process, and he said that's part of leadership, dealing with adversity. There's going to be some pain. There's pain for every team. So I guess he knows what's happening. It sounds like they're all on the same page at least.
I didn't really think about this. Maybe I should have until now, but they're waiting for Belichick and Brady to be gone.
Yeah, they're also waiting, it sounds like, for next year's quarterback class. That's why I don't think the Dolphins will be active in quarterbacks this year.
Mm-hmm. They'll probably free agent around the quarterback and then
I could see them signing a backup quarterback, but I don't know. I think they would go Tannehill, but I think they will definitely be okay with winning 2 or 3 games next year. So I don't think they'll really look to improve that position.
Yeah, and there is a very flattering quarterback class next year, but I feel like there's a pretty flattering one this year. I mean, Drew Lock is looking up and rising up in the draft stock, and he looks pretty good. He looks like he could be a good, potential good quarterback. So there's a lot of potential out there this year, but I understand that next year looks even better.
Well, as of right now, they're drafting like 14th.
True, this is true.
Next year they could draft 1 or 2, and then they could have their choice between Tua and Herbert from Oregon.
That also comes from the fact that you could probably trade up like the 5th pick in theory, but again, you have to give up a lot.
They're going to have to give up. Yeah, from 14 to 5 would be at least 2 first-round picks, more than likely.
There is a lot of other options out there, but yeah, probably next year they're probably more fit for a quarterback in the early draft picks. By the sense of there's Tua, there's Herbert, there's just a lot of other options out there where they can get a high draft pick, and it looks to me like if I have to guess, Miami's probably going to get the first overall pick. How they're planning it out.
Yeah, it looks. I mean,
Tannehill's going to be gone most likely.
It looks like they're setting it up that way for sure.
Yeah, like who's going to be the quarterback next year?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It does sound. We've seen reports. We've seen reports that Tannehill's on his way out. So, the other coach though that was officially hired is Zach Taylor for the Cincinnati Bengals, the quarterbacks coach of the Los Angeles Rams. Now, former coach for the Los Angeles Rams will join.
Is this a bad start for him though? In theory.
It doesn't look good after what happened with his quarterback on Super Bowl Sunday. But as we know, Sean McVay assistant coaches were kind of the talk of the town this offseason. That was the trend. Zach Taylor, 35 years old, continues the trend of young offensive-minded coaches being hired as a head coach in the NFL. He will go to the Bengals. What do you think about that?
Well, I honestly am hesitant just because how Goff had played in remember saying in the playoffs, he was not looking too good. And do you have to put a little factor in of how he was the quarterback coach? Do you have to put that into perspective of how he was playing in the postseason?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's because just on a young quarterback.
Now he has Andy Dalton as his quarterback. Is he really the guy for Cincinnati, or is this more along lines of taking what you can get and finding someone else in a year or two?
I think they do have a decision to make about Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton's kind of in the same situation as Tannehill is in Miami, where it's like...
Oh, he's absolutely.
It's like either cut him off now or continue with him and commit to him. But it is a decision they're going to have to make.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a lot of questions about the Bengals, and I think honestly, if I had to make a prediction now, I could see the Bengals and Dolphins being the top 3 pick in the draft next year.
Yeah. I mean, a lot's going to happen. We have NFL free agency coming up. We have the draft at the end of April. So free agency is going to be here next month. I mean, it's coming up quick. We're coming up to some important dates for when players could be cut and things like that. So I don't know if this is good news for Andy Dalton. I really don't. I don't know if it's bad news. I have no idea. I'm
just hesitant about if this was the right move in the long run based off of how his quarterback did in the postseason, because that's where it matters the most. That's where coaching and everything comes together the most. And if he did well, he did okay. Jared Goff did pretty good this regular season. But honestly, he did not do spectacular for me to say, oh, I want that coach who's coaching him to be my head coach. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Anyways, we'll go to a break. Before we do that, I want to tell you about investing and planning for your retirement. It's always best to get the advice from the experts. Best-selling author Harry Dent, America's #1 economist, says the dark window is open. There's an opportunity to rapidly boost your retirement savings before the greatest stock market crash in American history. But this dark window won't be open for long. You could make 10 times the annual average stock market gain in just a few short months, according to the research of renowned Harvard economist Harry Dent, though this window could slam shut later this year, and nobody on Wall Street is expecting it. This dark window is something bigger by far than anything he's predicted up to this point, and you can make 10 times the annual average stock market gain. Find out more by going to www.harrydentforecast.com. There's a very short time to take advantage of this dark window, so go to www.harrydentforecast.com to learn more.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We are finishing up our talks about the NFL because Aaron Rodgers, he does not need surgery. Yay! Or
It was hinted that during the season that he might need surgery. That was the injury he sustained in Week 1, the season opener against the Chicago Bears. He wore a brace all the way up until November. But he looks like he will not need surgery. He'll avoid surgery, so it'll allow him to start his off-season training and his off-season program on time without any delay. So he says he feels great, and they're going through a different routine with his knee than he's done in the past. So he also said that he got a concussion in the last game that he played in. So,
okay.
But I think this needs to be talked about. Is Aaron Rodgers on... Is he officially past the prime of his career on the downswing and looking at maybe 2 years left? Or
so are we looking at him going to the Arizona Cardinals in the retirement tour?
Is it possible
that's usually where the retirement players go.
Is it possible that Tom Brady will outlive Aaron Rodgers in the NFL in terms of his NFL career? That wouldn't seem possible 4 or 5 years ago, but
It's tough to think. It's tough to decide right now because of the fact he has been injured recently, and it's like he doesn't have a very talented team around him also. So maybe it's the scenery, maybe it's him in general, but we really don't know. Like this is a question we cannot answer until it hits the regular season next year. We will see how he does. If this season he struggles again and he's 100% healthy, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one.
It's interesting because this is a guy who's been relatively healthy, but the last couple seasons we've seen him miss part of the season. We've seen him injure his knee a couple times now. He's not young anymore. What is he, 35, 36 now? I mean, he's entering that twilight.
2005 he was drafted, so add 14 years. So, yeah, probably in that era.
Him and Alex Smith are the same age. They're about 34, 35 years old. So
yeah. So they are at the end.
Yeah, it is a big season.
Except if you're Tom Brady, who's basically father time, where time stands still in his heart.
It's a big season for Aaron Rodgers. It's a big season for the Packers because what if they have a season where Aaron Rodgers is injured again and either misses a big part of the season or is hurt through most of the season? Do they actually consider about moving on from him?
You know, I've said this a little bit. Maybe it's time in this draft. You maybe have to go for a quarterback just to think to replace him, just to think in the long-term scenario, because maybe you're right. Maybe at that time that they'll be too late to find a quarterback with a lot of talent. Like you're running out of quarterback classes, like that can be, well, maybe not, but in the sense of you need one that's going to be developed by the time he's done. You might need to look at one right now.
It's a big offseason for the Packers because not only are we kind of looking at a crossroads, I think, in Aaron Rodgers' career, but, you know, them hiring new young head coach Matt LaFleur, I think there's a possibility here that this thing could combust, you know, with a rookie head coach, with a player like Aaron Rodgers who could be a little bit tough to deal with, and he's getting older, and he's getting nicked up here and there. There's a chance that this thing could be very combustible this year. If they start off slow, let's say they miss the playoffs again, I think the times in Green Bay can get a little frustrating if that happens again. I mean, obviously bad seasons happen, but cities like Green Bay, Pittsburgh, they're not used to like multiple years without making the playoffs, you know? Like they're not used to that. They can do 1 year, you know, obviously are disappointed, but you know, 2 years, 3 years, we'll see. It can be a very testy situation, I think. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a interesting. This is a crossroads, like you said, for the Packers. Like we've always seen them as a playoff contender, and maybe, just maybe, we're going to see them rebuilding. I think it's like an end of an era almost, because once Brady's gone, we might be seeing a Patriot rebuild also. We might be seeing multiple rebuilds from these playoff teams that we've seen over and over again.
Yeah. All right, so I wanted to get to a crazy story, in my opinion, a devastating story, but one that ESPN has just reported yesterday. A woman in California died in August as a result of being hit in the head by a batted ball at Dodger Stadium, according to a Los Angeles County coroner's report obtained by ESPN. So, the woman's daughter also revealed to Outside the Lines, which is a program on ESPN, that this was in fact true, and this was in December when that conversation occurred. So Linda Goldblum died on August 29th, and the cause of death was acute intracranial hemorrhage due to history of blunt force trauma. So the injury happened when she was struck in the head by a baseball in August 25th game at Dodger Stadium. Now, the television coverage did not follow the flight of the ball, but the ball ended up hitting this woman. She was taken to the hospital on an ambulance, where she died a couple days later after brain surgery. How crazy is this that it was able to be hush-hush until now?
It's a very uncomfortable situation for sure, and I don't like the fact that it was kept. Maybe I have a gut feeling this. I could be totally wrong on this, but like maybe it was like for the privacy of the family that lost their mother and wife of some sort, and it's just one of those things. Maybe it's just respect to privacy. That's my theory, at least, because it's a very troubling time, and sometimes you just don't want all the news about you and all these interviews. Like, you want the time to mourn.
So the Dodgers, like every other team in baseball, has the protective netting, and the ball sailed slightly over the netting and hit her in the head. She sat in section 106, row C, which is the first base side. So I guess we're talking about extending these nets and extending the safety regulations. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. So it sailed into right over the area protected by the netting. She got hit in the head. She got put in an ambulance. She threw up in the ambulance and ended up passing away tragically at the hospital after surgery on her brain. So I am a little bit disturbed by this story because the Dodgers never had like a follow-up story. I mean, I feel like it's their responsibility to like bring light to this situation, even as like a public service announcement, like, hey, this is why when you're at a baseball game, you should be paying attention at all times. Even if she was, we don't know. I'm just saying, like...
And you know how fast that ball's probably moving? Like,
yeah, we don't know if she was paying attention. We don't know if it would have made a difference. It could have.
Yeah.
But the fact is that it kind of feels like it was swept under the rug by not saying anything at all. And it just gives baseball a bad look, in my opinion, especially, one of their prominent franchises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and... it's just a situation. It's just, like you said, it's an uncomfortable situation. So, I just, first of all, just thoughts of prayers to the family who lost their, the woman, the families. It's just a rough time, obviously. And I don't know really how to react to this or how to respond to this. And I just hope it doesn't happen to anyone else.
In Major League Baseball's history, there's 2 reported instances of fans dying, other than this one, by being struck in the stands by foul balls. One happened at Dodger Stadium, so that's now twice at Dodger Stadium. Not that it really matters, but it is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's one of these moments in where we must learn as just as a safety regulations, learn from this. So just to see how we can prevent this from happening again. That's all we can do.
Mm-hmm. So going back to NBA, Giannis looks like he is thinking about the Greek Freak, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Sounds like he's going to pick Steph Curry with the number 1 pick in the All-Star Game draft. What are your thoughts? Steph picked Giannis first last year, so he said he might be returning the favor.
Makes sense. Just it's a fun exhibition game, so
why not get the guy who can shoot it from anywhere?
Yeah, right. I just really doesn't matter to me who gets picked first. It's just like a fun, like, it's like you pick a game with your friends. You pick the guys you like, you want to play around, you want to play with. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm. Giannis said that he wants to pick a team that's going to play hard, and that he might be leaning towards the younger players because they might have a little bit of hunger to play in the game. Yeah. Anyways, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, that's that.
Okay.
Join us tomorrow.
Sure, we can do stuff tomorrow. We got more sports to talk about, mostly probably basketball, and we're closer and closer to the trade deadline there, and we're in the process of the offseason and getting closer to when the free agents can sign with teams, and it's all an exciting time.
We have an interesting NBA game tonight. Raptors at 76ers.
Yes, we do.
TNT, 5 o'clock Pacific Eastern time, or
Pacific Eastern time?
Pacific Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Where's Pacific Eastern time, though? Just so what the people there know.
Probably like Idaho.
Okay. So people in Pacific Eastern time in Idaho know that it's 5 o'clock Pacific Eastern time.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, I'm Susan Mark. That's Malinoff Jeff. And we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.